Voy a hablar en inglés porque tenemos un panel internacional, ¿sí? Good morning or good evening, everyone. After the wonderful opening of the 17th week of Asia and Pacific yesterday afternoon with the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Asia Pacific Department, today we begin the day of the Chinese Study Center, which celebrates its first 25 years of academic activity. In the first opening panel, we will have the honor of receiving greetings for the Argentine ambassador in China, Sabino Vaca Narvaja, from Beijing, also from our friend, the Consular Guillermina Donofrio from Beijing, and then from the Minister Consular of the Chinese Embassy in Argentina, Wang from Buenos Aires. And we will receive also the brilliant lecture by Professor Wang Yiwei of the Renmin University of China. In these 25 years, the center has grown a lot, and I arrived in Argentina about 8 years ago, and after 4 years in Beijing for my PhD, being part of this center was a bit of feeling back in China, but with a Latin American perspective and with a bit of Europe. So the mix that we created was truly unique, and academic achievements such as publication, congresses, research projects, academic exchanges with Chinese institutions, the creation of our Master in Chinese Studies are only a small part of our experience. The deep value of our Chinese Study Center are for sure people. So here we have a people-centered approach. Everyone finds his space, proposes his ideas, the project he would like to carry out throughout the center. No competition is allowed, no prevarication on others, but cooperation and spirit of improvement and realization of common goals. So today we are celebrating a small community of shared future in our Center for Chinese Studies. So thank you everyone to stay here with us, celebrating this common spirit. So as I was introducing, we would like to see the video made by Argentina Embassy in China with the presence of Ambassador Sabino Vaca Narvaja. So please, Georgina.
Muy buenos días a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es Sabino Vaca Narvaja, embajador argentino en la República Popular China, y quiero agradecer especialmente por haberme invitado a participar de este seminario al director del Instituto de Relaciones Internacionales de la Universidad de La Plata, Norberto Consani, a la directora del Centro de Estudios Chinos, Francesca Staiano, y a todo el Departamento de Estudios de Asia y Pacífico, que están cumpliendo 30 años de historia, junto al Centro de Estudios Chinos, que cumplen 25 años, y que fueron todas instituciones claves para fortalecer el vínculo académico con la República Popular China e instituciones de la República Popular China, y también fueron clave para que se lograra instalar un instituto Confucio en la Universidad Nacional de La Plata, que es uno de los institutos claves para promover intercambio cultural y también la enseñanza del idioma chino. Ustedes saben, este año se cumplen 100 años de la creación del Partido Comunista Chino, así que me parece sumamente pertinente la temática de este seminario y la convocatoria a más de 19 académicos que están participando hoy, académicos prestigiosos tanto de Argentina como de China, que están desarrollando y presentando libros e investigaciones con respecto a esta temática. También quiero felicitar y agradecer la presencia del el ministro consejero de China en Argentina, Wang, y agradecerle en nombre de nuestro país y de todo el pueblo de Argentina toda la cooperación sanitaria que desarrolló Argentina con China en el marco de una situación mundial como fue la pandemia. En el año 2020 esa cooperación se concentró en la adquisición de insumos sanitarios y Argentina ha logrado organizar más de 42 vuelos y 5 buques para la adquisición de alrededor de 1.500 toneladas de insumos sanitarios que fueron claves para robustecer nuestro sistema sanitario en el año 2020, y este año todo el esfuerzo se ha concentrado en la adquisición de vacunas, así que también China ha sido clave para nuestra campaña nacional de vacunación. Agradecer por esta cooperación a todo el gobierno y el pueblo chino. Ustedes saben, esta embajada siempre apoya todas estas iniciativas académicas y estamos desplegando un trabajo también muy fuerte vinculado al tema subnacional, identificando también las regiones de China que a su vez tienen importantes mercados, importantes industrias y perfiles industriales, y también universidades muy importantes con las cuales estamos también fortaleciendo vínculos con las provincias argentinas. Así que cuentan también con esta embajada y con todos sus recursos para seguir trabajando y profundizando esta agenda académica que nos parece clave para promover el conocimiento mutuo, que también es clave para las relaciones bilaterales. Ustedes saben, el año que viene estamos cumpliendo 50 años de relaciones bilaterales. El presidente Xi Jinping lo ha invitado a nuestro presidente a realizar una visita de Estado que estamos planificando en el marco también de los 50 años de las relaciones bilaterales. Hoy no puedo estar con ustedes en forma online porque Argentina también ha sido invitada a participar en la apertura de lo que es la feria de importación y exportación más importante del mundo, que se desarrolla en la ciudad de Shanghái, y todos nuestros equipos y nuestros consulados están concentrados en esa tarea. Por eso hemos decidido, para estar presentes, mandar un mensaje grabado. Así que nuevamente los felicito por esta iniciativa y cuenten con toda nuestra colaboración y cooperación para seguir profundizando este tipo de encuentros. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much to Ambassador Vaca Narvaja, and thank you so much also to our Minister Guillermina Donofrio from Beijing. I don't know if Guillermina wants to say something more.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I will be very brief, Francesca. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for this invitation. I'm very happy to be among all of you because I feel very close to you, as I am a student from that university. I'm also, I work with many people that today are starting this beautiful activity that I really congratulate you all. So the only thing that I want to say that on behalf of our ambassador here in Beijing, that he was very happy for the invitation for the opening of this day of the anniversary of CeChino and the Department of Asia Pacific. As he already said, he's like participating on this important fair in China, but he even if he cannot be online, he just wanted to greet you all. So I'm very happy again to be here. I hope that you have a wonderful week. I'm very sure that you're going to be a successful one. So also to repeat that you can count on our embassy to deepen the relationship and the cooperation in academic issues and also in educational subjects. So a great hug for the director Norberto Consani and to my friend Laura and to you, Francesca. A very warm greeting as well to the Minister Consular, Wang and all the other participants and the professor from Beijing, from Renmin University. So that will be all. I will have to leave a little earlier today, so but I hope that I can see you later by YouTube. So thank you for the invitation again. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much, Guillermina. Thank you to you really to stay here. I know you have a lot of activities, so thank you really from our heart. And now I give the word to Minister Consular Dr. Wang Xiaolin. So we are really honored to have you here today, as I already said, and we are listening to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you for the invitation, and the ambassador Sabino, Vaca Narvaja, the consular Guillermina, Dr. Wang Yiwei, and our old friend Maria Francesca and Norberto Consani for the organization of this activity, this event. I want to just send our greetings and the greetings on behalf of the Ambassador Zhou Xiaoli. And now I want to speak in Spanish and talk about our view about the world and the China-Argentina relationship. También quiero felicitar el 25 aniversario del Centro sobre Estudios Chinos del Instituto de Relaciones Internacionales, asimismo el 30 aniversario del Departamento de Asia-Pacífico de la Universidad Nacional de La Plata, esta prestigiosa casa de estudios, altos estudios de la Argentina, que alberga un Instituto Confucio, que es realmente un honor para nosotros. Asimismo, quiero felicitar la presentación de los dos libros sobre el Partido Comunista de China. Este año coincide con su centenario y para nosotros también es una gran alegría que en la sociedad argentina hay un mayor estudio sobre este partido. Así que todo el deseo de que las mesas que se celebran hoy logren un pleno éxito. Quiero hablar un poco de nuestra visión sobre el mundo de hoy y también la relación entre nuestros países. Y vemos que la continua propagación de la pandemia del COVID-19 ha agregado factores de incertidumbre e inestabilidad al mundo que se encuentra sumergido en profundos reajustes y cambios. La crisis sanitaria ha deparado consecuencias como el severo impacto en los logros de la reducción de la pobreza a nivel mundial, la desaceleración del crecimiento económico de los países emergentes, el deterioro de los problemas globales relacionados con el cambio climático, la seguridad alimentaria, entre otros, por lo que la recuperación de la economía mundial se enfrenta a condiciones aún más duras. Y vemos con preocupación el avance contracorriente de algunas tendencias como el unilateralismo, el proteccionismo, el hegemonismo y las políticas de fuerza en el mundo de hoy. Y por eso vemos que el mundo se encuentra una vez más ante una encrucijada histórica, frente a una serie de problemas trascendentales y retos severos que ponen en juego el destino de la humanidad. Constituirá, según nuestra opinión, el único camino acertado la persistencia en los valores humanos universales como la paz, el desarrollo, la equidad, la justicia, la democracia y la libertad, así como el fomento de la unidad y la cooperación, en procura de la construcción conjunta de una comunidad de futuro compartido para toda la humanidad. En su discurso en los debates generales del 76 sesión de la Asamblea General de la ONU, el presidente Xi Jinping expuso las propuestas de China frente a esta situación, haciendo hincapié en la importancia de hacer de las vacunas anti-COVID-19 bienes públicos globales a fin de garantizar su accesibilidad y asequibilidad para los países en desarrollo, y la prioridad actual de distribuirlas de forma equitativa y racional a nivel global. China se trabajará por proporcionar 2.000 millones de dosis de vacunas al resto del mundo y sobre la base de la donación de 100 millones de dólares al mecanismo de COVAX, donará 100 millones de dosis de vacunas a otros países en vías de desarrollo. En este sentido, el presidente Xi propuso la iniciativa para el desarrollo global, integrada fundamentalmente por los siguientes elementos. Primero, priorización del desarrollo con miras a forjar asociaciones de desarrollo globales más equitativas y equilibradas. Segundo, enfoque centrado en la gente a fin de garantizar y mejorar las condiciones de vida del pueblo y proteger y promover los derechos humanos mediante el desarrollo. Tercero, beneficio generalizado e inclusión, con el énfasis en los esfuerzos por resolver problemas como el desarrollo desequilibrado e insuficiente dentro de un país y entre los países. Cuarto, la innovación para el desarrollo con objeto de aprovechar las oportunidades históricas generadas por la nueva ronda de la revolución científica, tecnológica e industrial para llevar adelante un desarrollo a pasos agigantados. Cuarto, convivencia armoniosa entre los seres humanos y la naturaleza, con la prioridad en la aceleración de la transición baja en carbono para promover una recuperación y desarrollo verde. Ustedes saben que China ya se ha comprometido a llegar a su pico de emisión antes de 2030 y también lograr la neutralización en carbono antes de 2060. Quinto, la orientación por las acciones para acelerar la implementación de la Agenda 2030 de la ONU para el Desarrollo Sostenible, que realmente China ya ha cumplido con 10 años de antelación, y la edificación de una comunidad global de desarrollo con futuro compartido. El presidente Xi Jinping también subrayó que hay que mejorar la gobernanza global y tener el verdadero multilateralismo. En el mundo, para nosotros, solo hay un sistema, que es el sistema internacional con la ONU como el centro. Solo un orden que es el orden internacional basado en el derecho internacional y solo un conjunto de normas que son las normas básicas de las relaciones internacionales a base de los propósitos y principios de la Carta de las Naciones Unidas. Este año coincide con el centenario del Partido Comunista de China y también la recuperación del escaño legítimo de la República Popular China en las Naciones Unidas. Y quiero destacar la declaración solemne que hizo el presidente Xi Jinping con motivo del centenario del partido, que China había alcanzado su primer objetivo centenario de construir en todos los aspectos una sociedad modestamente acomodada, según lo planeado. Y ahora ya inició una nueva marcha hacia la construcción integral de un país socialista moderno. Y este constituye el segundo objetivo centenario de China, que es para el centenario de la República Popular China. Continuaremos siendo un constructor de la paz mundial, un contribuyente del desarrollo global, un defensor del orden internacional, así como un proveedor de bienes públicos. Trabajaremos con los pueblos de todos los países para construir un mundo mejor. En cuanto a nuestras relaciones, quisiera destacar que a pesar de la larga distancia que nos separa, nuestros pueblos siempre son amantes de la paz y conociéndose y acompañándose en los bienes y en los males. Y sobre todo esto se ha demostrado a plenitud en esta pandemia. Y pasando las pruebas de las vicisitudes internacionales, la relación entre nuestros países ya se ha convertido en un ejemplo de unidad, cooperación y desarrollo común entre los países emergentes y los en vías de desarrollo. Sobre todo nosotros siempre nos apoyamos mutuamente en cuestiones tan importantes como el respeto de la soberanía y la salvaguardia de la integridad territorial. En la actualidad, la relación se caracteriza por los siguientes aspectos. Primero, los contactos entre nuestros jefes de Estado están conduciendo el rumbo a seguir. En los últimos 2 años, la frecuencia de intercambios epistolares y telefónicos entre nuestros presidentes ha alcanzado un récord histórico, en los cuales los dos mandatarios intercambiaron opiniones con profundidad sobre una serie de temas de gran relevancia para alcanzar importantes consensos, señalando la dirección para el desarrollo estable y de largo plazo de nuestra vinculación en la nueva era. En segundo lugar, la cooperación en materia de la innovación, que es un punto nuevo y muy importante que ha contribuido al fomento de un desarrollo de alta calidad de nuestras relaciones. Aprovechando las oportunidades de la nueva ronda de revolución científica y tecnológica, China y la Argentina han explorado nuevas áreas de cooperación como la tecnología espacial, economía digital, agricultura verde, energía limpia, biotecnología, ciudad inteligente, tecnología 5G, Antártida, entre otras, llevando la relación comercial a un nivel aún más elevado. Como ustedes ya saben, en los primeros 3 trimestres de este año, el comercio binacional ya alcanzó un monto de 1.200 millones de dólares, con un incremento de 20,30%, en el cual el contenido del comercio de servicio ha tenido un notable aumento. Y hoy justo coincide con la inauguración de la Exposición Internacional de Importación de China, que es una importante plataforma para las empresas e instituciones gubernamentales de la Argentina para promover la exportación de los productos argentinos. En este sentido, quiero decir que nos honra la presencia y el discurso del presidente Alberto Fernández, que es el siguiente al presidente Xi Jinping en el orden de las intervenciones, que demuestra plenamente la importancia que da China a la Argentina. Y también la presencia del canciller Santiago Cafiero, que es sumamente importante para todo este acto inaugural de la exposición. Y para esta exposición están concurriendo una gran cantidad de empresas argentinas para promover la exportación de los productos. Y también agradecemos a la Embajada Argentina en Beijing, al embajador, a la consejera, por todos sus esfuerzos para lograr esta importante meta. En tercer lugar, la lucha conjunta entre los dos países contra la pandemia ha ayudado a estrechar los lazos de amistad. Frente a esta pandemia inédita, los gobiernos y pueblos de China y Argentina se han solidarizado y apoyado mutuamente, dejando escrito un nuevo capítulo de la amistad en nuestra historia. China hasta hoy ya ha suministrado más de 30 millones de dosis de vacunas a la Argentina, lo cual ha ayudado mucho a la campaña de vacunación a nivel nacional en la Argentina y sobre todo ahora la recuperación económica y social post pandemia. En cuarto lugar, los intercambios culturales ha propiciado el incremento del conocimiento mutuo. Durante la pandemia, las dos partes llevaron a cabo diversas actividades virtuales y se concretó hermanamiento entre ciudades. Se inauguró el tercer Instituto Confucio en Argentina. Se celebró con éxito exposiciones de trajes de las minorías étnicas chinas y de vacunas chinas también. Se establecieron vínculos institucionales entre varias instituciones artísticas y la cooperación entre los medios de comunicación está en un vigoroso desarrollo. Yo creo que el evento de hoy también es un importante ejemplo de las actividades culturales y académicas que estamos llevando a cabo a pesar de la pandemia. Estamos trabajando para superar todas las dificultades, para profundizar nuestro conocimiento mutuo y tener un mayor acercamiento entre nuestras sociedades, lo cual es, sin duda alguna, fundamental para la relación de nuestros países. En quinto lugar, la colaboración estratégica también se extiende a los foros multilaterales, siendo por igual grandes países en desarrollo y economías emergentes de gran peso. Tanto China como Argentina se adhieren al multilateralismo y mantienen estrechas concertaciones, comunicaciones en el marco de la ONU, del G20, y quiero destacar también el encuentro de nuestros cancilleres presencial en el marco del G20 en Roma, que es el primer encuentro presencial a nivel de canciller entre China y Argentina y después de la pandemia y sobre todo entre China y América Latina, que va a inaugurar toda la serie de actividades entre China y los países latinoamericanos después de la pandemia. Por eso tiene un significado simbólico de gran trascendencia. Esto más o menos son las visiones que tenemos sobre el mundo de hoy y también sobre la agenda bilateral. En ese sentido, quiero decir que China está dispuesta a trabajar junto con la Argentina para aprovechar las oportunidades de celebrar el 50 aniversario de sus relaciones diplomáticas el año que viene, a fin de promover la recuperación postpandémica en forma conjunta y el desarrollo sostenible de alta calidad, así como elaborar e implementar planes de intercambio y cooperación en todos los niveles y terrenos, a fin de promover un desarrollo más sustantivo en el marco de la Asociación Estratégica Integral entre nuestras naciones. Nuestra embajada va a seguir apoyando los intercambios académicos y entre nuestras universidades y think tanks a fin de tener un mayor conocimiento mutuo entre nuestros pueblos, entre nuestros expertos. Asimismo, vamos a seguir apoyando y ayudando al Centro de Estudios Chinos y al Departamento de Asia-Pacífico, así como al Instituto de Relaciones Internacionales de la Universidad Nacional de La Plata. Como siempre, cuenten con nosotros para todas estas actividades, por sus estudios, publicaciones, porque creemos que todos estos esfuerzos valen la pena, porque van a ayudar a profundizar la amistad entre nuestros pueblos, entre los chinos y los argentinos, y sobre todo la relación entre estas dos grandes naciones. Para finalizar, quiero desear todo éxito de las mesas de hoy y también de la Semana de Asia-Pacífico. Muchas gracias a ustedes. Thank you, everyone.
Muchísimas gracias, consejero Wang. Thank you so much. Really full of information, your speech, really informative and very actualized panorama of the situation of the relations between China and Argentina. So thank you so much for your intervention. And so, of course, we will stay in contact for further events. Yes, so thank you so much. Now I give the word to Professor Wang. Professor Wang Yiwei is Chamonix Chair Professor in Europe, Professor of the School of International Studies, Vice President of Academy of Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics for a New Era, Director of the Institute of International Affairs, Director of Center for European Union Studies at Renmin University of China. So it's a really honor for us to listen to you, Professor Wang. If you want to share your PPT.
Thank you, Mojo Ignacio, for inviting me, and congratulations for the 30th anniversary of your department. And I just came back from Shanghai. There is the World China Studies Forum. So they also talk about the Community of Shared Future, the Belt and Road Initiative. So now I want to share with my views on the Belt and Road Initiative after coronavirus, and what that's meaning for China-Argentina relations in general, China-Latin American cooperation, what are new challenges, new opportunities. So basically, it's my topic. How to turn back to the just a test of the how to come back, and then we show the PPT. It's just a test.
Yes, do you remember, Professor Wang? I
need
think
to
you download already.
Yes, to come back to the mailbox. Okay.
Here it is.
Yeah, okay. Oh, this is another one, right? This is the second one.
This is the second one, yes.
Guo Chenhai gave to me because I don't speak Spanish, so this is his presentation. Okay, so I show you the previous one.
As you prefer. If you want, I can share it for you. You say, Professor.
But, no problem.
Is this, yes, the other one.
Okay, no, sure. Okay. Oh, just the. Well, it's disappeared. So the PPT disappeared. How to access again? Oh, maybe. No. Big problem. Oh.
Professor Wang, if you want, I have here your presentation. If you want,
because it's too many pages. So if I do my myself, it's better. Otherwise, I always ask you to turn the first page, next page, and next page.
Okay.
To download again and again. Well, how to? Well. Well, it's I download the well, but where is located? Oh, sorry. Yeah, here. Here we go. Okay.
Okay.
So now you can see, right? The PPT, right? Hello?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay, the Belt Road Initiative in the post-COVID-19 era. Firstly, the Belt Road Initiative originally, we say, is to reform the globalization, making it more towards balanced, inclusive, and win-win. Traditional Washington consensus, globalization, driving globalization, of capital by capital and for capital, making the rich richer, poor poor. So Argentina and China suffered from the global financial crisis, IMF, all this. So even the US, the American scholars also say the end of the new liberalism. So we need new kinds of globalization. So now in the new globalization, it's a more globalization, global regionalization. So what's the BRI? Well, looks like. So that's basically the topic I will share with you. So globalization in transition and the BRI in the post the COVID-19 era, and China also put forward the dual circulation strategy. What is the meaning for the BRI and for China-Latin American relations? First, about globalization, it's in transition. So far, 5 million people died because of the COVID. So globalization is not a global supply chain as a global integration. It's more like Europe, Asia, we have RCEP, and the NAFTA 2.0 or Latin American, Africa, they are more regional framework. So the traditional Washington consensus, neoliberalism driven globalization now has come to the end. So everybody, every country worry about so-called the safety of the global supply chain. Like a European slogan is diversification of the globalization, resilience, safety, not just security, localized, diversified. So this kind of new kinds of globalization. The global value chains competition is maybe it's a new kinds of geopolitics. So that's everybody know we are facing that kind of situation. It's a new globalization logic. It's the slowly safety, resilience, more highlight. At the same time, new kinds of way of producing, way of transportation, the living also after the COVID-19. So everybody talk about climate change. I think the COVID, maybe disease, comes from because of the climate change, maybe. So adaptation to a new environment. So that reason, low carbon technology, and not just a way of producing, way of living, way of thinking, all impact by the carbon neutrality goal. So the green circle road also be highlighted. At the same time, the people's way of working style and the living style also changed. So remote working, that people more rely on the digital facilities like Zoom, fatigue. So everybody more rely on data and digital e-commerce. Data is more important than like the oil and the gas. So it's a new kinds of major driving forces for economic growth and the safety. About the rules about data is also be a new games of among the international relations. And then cities, different cities, because people now not too much centralized, metropolitan like Beijing, Shanghai, the big city. Now the secondary cities, maybe millions of them, even less, more convenient for people to live, and then because of the people now need to separate, not too much centralized. So that kind of also impact of people's psychology and the impact of the way of communicating. So government also need to play a more important role. Everybody need to spend money to deal with the COVID, to deal with global recession, to deal with the climate change, digital transformation, energy, new energy, investment, everything needs government. So we need a strong government. So that's the reason I think Biden won, because Democratic prefers big government, Republicans small government. So state strikes back. State need play a very important role to bridge the gaps. Now China also prefer the common prosperity strategy. We tax now just in the G20, which have the 15% of the minimum tax regulation. So that also not that rich, the big companies make huge money, and then the poor companies suffer a lot. So that is, I think, a global phenomenon. At the same time, populism rising because of the influence, not just limited in the economic, even political participation, and also many uncertainties for the people's psychology. So some politicians are easy to use with that kind of populist movement to get the support or eye-catching propaganda. As people say, the post tools, so-called fake news. It's easy for politicians to mobilize the public opinion to get the support according to intention. So post-COVID world, post-COVID world will be more uncertain and more. I think it's divided, not just in the previous time, the global village. Countries not trust each other as Euro. Safety, not just security, be highlight. Global supply chain, not just rely on others. They want to diverse. That's the reason the European Parliament, the US, play the card of Taiwan. They want to not too much rely on the China's domestic market. Mainland China, they want to build more connections with Taiwan, India, to diversify the supply chain. At the same time, digital transformation and transfer to green growth and more people-centric for health. So that's the reason China actually very intensively catch up with, and now is second only to the United States in the digital economy. And sooner or later will be the biggest one. So in China, we are coming single day very soon. So November 11th, everybody crazy to buy the promotional, price of the products and all kinds of them, and also make China to catch up with the US more, hurry up the speed. For instance, last year, China is the only major economy, the G20, still have the economic growth. All others negative growth. So the new path of the global supply chain to be another new geopolitics conflicts. So that's the ideology also plays an important role, because people think about privacy, labor rights, freedom of the data flows, and safety of the. China also put forward a global data safety initiative, but this about a different political system, different culture. So that's a new phenomenon, the so-called rule-based. And at the same time, the trade war and the Biden actually continue, so-called decoupling with China, and make the global supply chain also be heavily hijacked by the politicians, so economic, not let economic do, and it's more politicalized. And the US politics is more polarized, and so that's a new uncertainty put to threat to the global supply chain. Actually, decouple is impossible in general, but in some areas like the high technology, sensitive national security areas is happening. So even the visas for the high technicians, engineering, or the professional peoples, the freedom of navigation, of mobility, of all this suffered. So they want to diverse the supply chain for many countries. So the pandemic really impact of the globalization in the short term and long term, from the way of producing, the way of transportation, the walking, and the way of thinking even. So that's the general background. And then the Belt and Road Initiative, what will be impacted by the new kinds of globalization. We will be more focused on the people-centric. With our slogan, take the people's health, people's safety, people's lives as the top priority. If that's the difference with the capital-driven kinds of governance. So that's compare the Chinese and the US, the pandemic to control. Actually, China, of course, pay higher costs, our economy, but people feel safe, much safer than the people in the US. The US government, the local government cannot spend too much money to control, even for they are too much believe in God, the privacy consideration, the power struggle, all this make the people even can be even denied to be vaccinated and to even wear the mask. So people-centric, the BRI also focus on people's health, the Silk Road for health, not just traditional capital-driven. Just think about the rich people. So the Belt and Road Initiative focuses more on the cooperation with the developing countries, with the developing areas of the advanced economy, job creation to deal with the global economic recession, focus more on the tax and job creation. I think that's very important. If people do not have a job and then cannot pay for the housing, food, everything, so far, so it's 141 countries signed an MOU with Chinese government, jointly built Belt and Road Initiative, and also 32 international organizations signed the similar MOU, like the WHO for health, UNDP, all of this. So this is the list of the countries. You may be very interested. It's not include Argentina. When I visited Argentina before the COVID, the questions I got is why we need to sign the MOU, because we have so many projects. What's the differences if you sign or not sign? Firstly, infrastructure building, mutual connectivity, big data, all this, think about the long term. So if you sign the MOU with China, and that is actually gave the self-confidence for Chinese companies to invest, and also guarantee in the long term for a stable environment for attract investment, even for other third party to cooperate, invest. Secondly, if you sign the MOU, and then you can attend the intensive negotiation to set the rules. The many new standards like the green, health, digital, because the WTO, they don't have every countries hurry up to join a negotiation. The US, they have the transatlantic high technology and trade in the council. But we need to, if you think about the people-oriented, people-centric, more than 85% of the people in the world live in the developing countries. They are not the silent majority. They need to join the negotiation. So recently in the United Nations, the resolution will endorse the community of shared future for the second time in the airspace, but in outer space. US, India, and some Western countries against, but the majority of the assembly of their support. So that's very important. Developing countries, the global South need to unite it to jointly work together to set the rules. And the BRI basically focus on the relations with the global South. The Western countries, the standard is too high maybe, cannot adapt to the reality of most of the countries. They just work for the strong people, big company with the rich people. They're not pay too much attention to the poor countries, poor people. So that's the reason they're not sustainable. So BRI, why so many much attacked to the developing countries? Because China actually 40 years ago, before the opium reform, China's per capita GDP is only 1/3 of South Sahara African countries. 1/3. Now China is not just second only to the United States of the GDP. Per capita GDP is very soon to cross the so-called mid-income trap, which Argentina, some Latin Americans countries suffered, the mid-income trap. China will cross this trap, and so that's very important for 1.4 billion people to get rich. So far, we have 400 million middle-class people. By 2035, will be double. That means 800 million. And by 2049, according to the 2 centennial of the Chinese dream goals, where all the Chinese will be the middle class. So not just live the poverty in the past 40 years of contributed more than 800 million, and the nearly 78% of the world poverty elevation comes from the Chinese contribution. In the future, the majority of the middle class growing because of the Chinese rising. So that's very important, not just China rise, but Chinese rise, Chinese people's rise, get rich. So that's, I just give an example about Belt Road Initiative, why they put high standard, but adapt to the local conditions. So that's reason they be attractive. US put so-called the building back of better world in the G7 this June, and then continue. High standard, too high. They say BRI, the standard not too high, so they're higher. It's too high, not to adapt to the local conditions, to make other countries be isolated or suffered. So yes, high standard is also the BRI's goal, but we need to, government should play very important role. So the China model, so-called China model, according to Jasper Lin, the former vice president of the World Bank, now the professor of the Peking University, the dean of the South Institute, summarized that the efficient market, effective government. For the developing countries, if you just use the market principle, you'll be isolated or extremized. The government should play a very important role to build the preconditions, let the market works. And then you can cross so-called the middle income trap. I think one of the real reasons for China rising so rapidly is a strong leadership of Communist Party, which Argentina and the Latin Americans I visit, and I really think about you need strong government, long-term consideration with 5-year plans continually coherent to work for this kind of and it works for the people-centric policy for the whole people, not just for some rich people, the policy. So don't cry Argentina. So everybody remember, when I visit Argentina, I think it's still Madame Perón still be remembered by the Argentina people for the social justice, right, for the working class. I think that's very important. So that's the list of all the countries. But there are 3 kinds of countries. This is 141 countries signed MOU. This kind of jointly built Belt and Road countries. But the formal, we say 65, including China, we have 6 economic corridors. This is in Chinese we say 沿线国家. It's those are the first phrase of the we say hosting countries or participating countries. But the third one, there's 14 advanced economy like Japan, Germany, France, South Korea. They signed the third-party cooperation deal with China, which is related corporate countries. But US or Argentina Many US companies actually participate and make huge money in the Belt Road projects, but the US government against in recent years, before even they didn't. Argentina is a very unique, it didn't sign, and like Brazil, but many projects. So how to calculate Argentina? Definitely in the Chinese eyes, I think it's a Belt Road country, very important, even pilot and pioneer in Latin America. So many projects and strategic cooperation even. From the food, energy, mutual connectivity to all kinds of wine and many even energy. So that's the people-centric, and I think that's kind of ideas politically to deal with the AI, digital era, and the people-first, people-centric approach. It's not just a Chinese domestic mindset, but also BRI principle. The second one is development-oriented. Development is a key to solve all kinds of the problems. If you cannot have economic growth, economic not developed, the country suffer, then don't have enough money. How can you talk about the social justice? How can you talk about the welfare system? So development, even for the advanced economy, they also now focus on development, not just developing countries as well. Economic growth is, I think, is a priority and the preconditions for other political and social, I think, affairs. So that's different with the development-oriented or rule-based international order. If the Western countries always say rule-based, set the high standard rules, Chinese slogan is 在发展中规范，在规范中发展. So development first, and then during the process of the development, you find you need to set the rules. But those rules comes from the truth, from the reality, from the developing need, and then gradually to set the rules, and then to have a high standard to guide the new high level of development. So that's kind of logic. But development is the key to make the healthy and sustainable development, inclusive development. But if you don't have development, you high standard the rules, that's empty. Third, because traditional one, we said consume too much of the labels, lands, and resources, raw materials. But now people say sustainable development, green growth, inclusive growth. So more rely on innovation. Innovation, not just a technology, system, new platform, new kinds of cooperation mechanism. So that's the reason China recently declared to join the Digital Partnership Initiative, which actually initiated by Chile, Singapore, and New Zealand, like the TPP original. So actually, I always compare when I visit Argentina. Chile is the first country in Latin America recognized Chinese market economy, signed the FTA with China. Chile's economy actually benefited a lot from the Asia Pacific area, particularly from the Chinese market. Argentina now, I think, also, if you build more real and connections with the Pacific, be also in the future, not just Atlantic, but also Pacific. So when I share with you, you have a plan to connect the Pacific and the Atlantic. I think that's very important because it's closer than originally we planned from the Peru, Brazil, connected the two oceans, but it costs too much of money. But Argentina, definitely, we can do that. Your revolution, founding father of the San Martin and Bolivia, they also have that kind of dream, as I know. So innovations is very important. When I visited Colombia, they also want to join the APEC after the end of the Civil War, because you have a Pacific Alliance. Only Colombia is not APEC member. For others, Peru, Chile, Mexico, all benefit a lot from the Asia Pacific century. So I think that's the Belt Road Initiative, particularly connect the land and the sea. Even the day before yesterday, I also gave a lecture to Japanese. Japan now also they sent the ship landed in Shanghai and from Yangtze River in Wuhan, and then China Europe Rail Express, and then to Europe. Not just originally from the sea and then arrive in Europe, it cost maybe 1 month, but now from the China Europe Rail Express, half 14 days. So it's more convenient. After the pandemic, because the air transportation, maritime transportation suffered a lot for safety of the virus, but the China Europe Rail Express, because from the continental is only driver, and then no passengers, so it's easy for them. So last year, 40% growing for the China European Rail Express, and Japan also benefited from this continental and maritime transportation integration. The river, the Yangtze River and the sea connect each other. So I think this is a good example for Argentina. If you build that kind of connections, like another, it's a land Panama. It's not a canal Panama, it's a continental canal. So innovation, I think new ideas and to save the energies, new platforms, new mechanism to cooperate. I think software infrastructure building, software mutual connectivity. I think this also because we should have that new thinking. Now Beidou, Chinese GPS, globalized. Actually, as I know, we have the outer space cooperation, either in Chile and in Argentina. I think that's very important. China now sent the 3 astronauts in the space station for half a year. In the future, sooner or later, very soon actually, China is only international space station, only Chinese, only have Chinese. US no more budget. Russia also. 4, so it's more inclusive. So-called inclusive means not just rich and poor, coastal area and landlocked areas, different industries. They need to inclusively connect it. So it's with not just a balance, but all will benefit from this. So that reason, Ambassador just mentioned the China import export, China import pavilion in Shanghai. So we need to balance not just export but also import, and more win-win results. Even all win, not just rich people win. Some countries win, other countries, other people suffered. So that kind of approach is very important. Advanced economy join the projects, making money, huge money there. Consulting, the regulations, set the rules. China, because we are efficient to do infrastructure construction, because China has all the categories of the industries according to the United Nations. So it's more efficient, and the costs are lowest compared to the advanced economy. And the local hosting countries, participating countries also benefit from the investment because like the Chinese slogan of the lift poverty. If we want to get rich, build the road. So infrastructure building first, and then economic growth, and then make sure that there's kind of a development benefit to the whole people. Is make a bubble, a real estate. All this just benefit to the rich people. So the future are many digital infrastructure, 5G. Now it's a smart grid, energy pipelines, and make the smart grid. All kind of this the future oriented AI technology. Of course, the debt because of the pandemic. Traditional those countries spend too much. Just rely on the IMF, World Bank to solve this problem, and the multi-party systems, elections, so empty service to promise too much, and they cannot have enough economic growth to make this promise. And also because of many countries rely on the economic growth, rely on the tourist, of the trade, but now suffer because of the pandemic. So that's the reason President Xi Jinping made that announcement in June in the G20 special summit that China will cut 77 countries of this year's of their debt, particularly in Africa, in the poor countries. So that's a real problem. So that reason we have the so-called 15% of the low tax of the regulations to tax the rich companies and strong companies. So to cut the less developed countries' debts, and more important, I think, is to make the economic growth, to find new opportunities to invest, transformation like the digital economy or the innovation, new technology, and new platforms, and all have this to get economic growth, like this kind of new kinds of the China-European trains and express. All kinds of these contribute to economic growth, and so we should to deal with new kinds of globalization because of the pandemic suffered, and also make the transformation of the Belt Road Initiative. So the digital circle road is what we highlight. So-called the digital circle road include digital trade, e-commerce, and also digital governance, the government, big data, and also global governance, global digital governance, and also international cooperation, digitalized and industrialization. We say digital industrialization and industrial digitalization. So this all combined together. Like the remote working, remote education and the conference, and also remote designing, many new cultural exchange. So connectivities, digital connectivities, Internet of Things, even digital currency, all kinds of this be highlighted. So 5G is a revolution. 70% of the 5G stations actually based in China. Now China very efficient, like the Huawei or these pioneer companies, to build more 5G stations, and in the developing countries, BRI countries, because the Western countries enforced by the US was the de-Huawei-ized of the 5G building, but it costs lots of money. And so digital circle road, digital infrastructure, trade, and governance be highlighted. There's the Wuzhen, the World Internet Conference. They have the initiative now. 42 countries actually signed this, and China also have the data, global data safety initiative, the Belt Road Initiative, digital circle road initiative. Also, as I said, China joined the digital partnership negotiation. Have there also some initiative in the Belt Road Summit. If the similar digital circle road, actually Huawei think about to connect Chile with Shenzhen 5G cable. Of course, the US against us and make postpone this, but it's very neat if Chile connect directly with a 5G cable. That would be the first cable actually in 5G that can connect to our continent. When I visited Chile, they talk a lot about that. Actually, if Argentina from the continental and the maritime and actually submarine cable building, actually more than 1/4 contribute because of Huawei company. So it's a very leading pioneer companies in not just 5G but also in cable. Now in the 5 priorities area of the digital circle road, one is of the ASEAN, because we're close to China with culture, many overseas Chinese, and mutual connectivities. The Eastern Asia, the culture, we are not too much. We very efficient in practicing of the digital communication or learning or all kinds of that innovation. And Africa, that's Kenya, so many data cooperation, and Central Asia and the 17+1 Central and Eastern European countries like Hungary, or Serbia. So technology, actually innovation to deal with the climate change and the pandemic, and also the transformation of the globalization. So the industrialized, industrial digitalization, digital industrialization work together. And then about the different way of living, like this photo to show you, the US used the so-called slogan of the safety, actually security, US alliance security, to block Huawei against the principles and the economic rules. Also because of the different way of eating. You see, Chinese, Eastern Asia's people used to in the chopstick and save one hand, and then to more efficient to deal with. And then US and Europeans say this is unfair competition. So it's very interesting. The Green Silk Road, for President Xi put forward the peak carbon dioxide peak emission by 2030, and by 2060 will be carbon neutrality, which they go. And a 14 5-year plan always focus on the very efficient practicing this, because also President Xi make an announcement now stopped investing of traditional carbon fire factories to cut CO2 emission. So green globalization is more, I think it's a universal values for every countries. So Chinese not building a new coal fire power projects. At the same time, to more focus on the green technology transfer and sharing, and also jointly innovate, and also set jointly with BRI countries, jointly to contribute the rules for the international community. Otherwise, the US and Europe would set a high standard and then enforce other developing countries to accept. So that's the to make your economic growth be relatively slowing down, and also not adapt to the local conditions. The third kind of the new transformation is for health, people's health, people-centric. Now vaccine and also many masks and the medical equipments and the materials. Yesterday news, the PLA, People's Liberation Army, also sent the vaccine to Ecuador. See, so even military can contribute to that. So that's kind of some photo to show with France, with Iran, with different continents. South Africa, this is with Ecuador. Argentina, as ambassador also mentioned. Now China actually make foreign assistance in the vaccine for more than 130 countries. China contributed this year 2 billion vaccine to the whole country. President Xi made an announcement: the vaccine should be the public goods. That means not like a commercial to make money, but you should have foreign for international actually medical crisis. This is urgent time. So not as according to international humanitarian assistance for health. So China also have the China Africa the hospital. China also be the United Nations of the logistic of the medical equipment and materials hub. China also support investor in many, actually more than 16 countries to build the vaccine factory. So it's not just produced in China, but also produced in 16 countries in the 5 continents, actually Latin America as well. So that's kind of a new kind of actually value chain, global supply chain to work for the people's health. Also, the Latin Americans, like several months ago, President Xi made a phone call with the president of Colombia. The Colombia presidents called the comrade Xi Jinping and the brotherhood. So it's a very Euro saying about that. So that means China very appreciative of the China support. If the US actually the vaccine, because the private companies innovated, so they want to make money. Also, it's very difficult to save and transplant and to use. The Chinese vaccines is more convenient and easy for them to vaccinate. This map is about the population. So more than 60% of the population gathered in Asia. The new young population is growing in Africa, like for instance, in the global south. So how to provide enough jobs, training them, and vocational education, and also digital service to work for them. Otherwise, we'll make trouble, like the Arab Spring. So the 17 goals of the SDG, the first one is about lift poverty, and about women's rights, about education, the food, everything. So BRI should work for that. And then the Chinese government put forward the dual circulation. What's the meaning? And what's the relations of the dual circulation with the Belt and Road Initiative? The dual circulation strategy, that means Chinese economic growth in the future, actually now it's more from Chinese domestic market, not just rely on the trade or completely export. It's a more domestic consumer, like 400 million middle class, comes more from the innovation. The new kinds of mechanism like that. We have 24 pilot areas of the free trade. So the start from Shanghai. So high standard. But we still need international market. But international market is more BRI countries, not the US or Western countries. And then it's a dual circulation. So not just one direction, it's a dual circulation. That means not just a coastal area of China open reform, domestic or inland of Chinese cities, areas, or very active to be the pioneer of the Chinese open reform. So far, like some cities actually work with Argentina, with Buenos Aires, or whatever, the foreign international assistance, whether vaccines or the medical equipment, all this help each other. That's very important. So it's localized. So that's a dual loop flow value chain systems to explaining the BRI. In the previous 40 years of the open reform, China is more pay attention to the relations with the advanced economy, but now it's more BRI countries. And then to make the global supply chain not just benefit the rich countries and rich people, but also developing countries. I think that's very important. So from the Belt and Road Initiative now is more focused on the digital for health and green, and also more focused on high standard of the circulation itself, not just the mutual connectivity, not just of the big infrastructure building projects, energy projects, but now software infrastructure, software connectivities will be highlighted. So the dual circulation strategy with the Belt and Road Initiative is not against each other, but actually let the BRIs more have a strong base, or domestic base, make the BRI be more sustainable and contribute jointly with the UN, the Sustainable Development Goals. So that kind of actually spirit and the directions actually is common. So China be not just a world factory, but also world market. We have mentioned the 170 million higher education professional skills people, 400 million middle class, and 1 billion netizens. those is a source of the innovation and the domestic consumer driven, and makes this Chinese cooperation with the BRI countries is more focused on the not traditionally way of producing, as I say, is more consumer innovation, cultural exchange, all kinds of these. So how to take a full advantage of the biggest market in the world and the most dynamic and new market to seek the more cooperation opportunities with the BRI countries. Actually, that's basically we will talk about further. So this is some questions when I was interviewed about the relations and BRI and the dual circulation. So I'm not go to the details, and maybe you can have a more carefully reading after my presentation. And people ask how about to deal with the building back a better world. As I mentioned, Biden actually is lip service. Now it's very weak. Even next year it's very soon. Midterm election, Republican come back, so he cannot do something. So even domestically, U.S. the infrastructure building we old need more investment. So how can you trust the U.S. will invest in other countries' infrastructure building? They just set a high standard international financial companies to set the rules. But if the too high standard not adapt to the local conditions, it make trouble for you. So the value oriented, not the development oriented, so make it more complicated. Big problems. But we welcome the U.S. To jointly build the infrastructure. We always actually pay attention to the cooperations with U.S. companies. U.S. are very efficient. They have the alliance system. They are very high technology and financial cooperation. All of these actually. So that's the two books in English, but also in Espanol. I have 7 books published, but the 8th one also coming for children. Textbooks include. So if you need more information about the further analysis, you can read my book in Espanol. And this is my presentation in UNESCO. And service for the people, actually, that's the key of our success. And then lastly, about another PPT, actually, this is my good friend and Guo Senhai, from the CAS. His PPT, but can I ask the moderator to show this PPT, and then we can have a Q&A. Muchas gracias. Bonjour.
Yes, Professor. Thank you so much.
The first PPT finished presentation.
Okay.
The second one is not mine, but it's my friends, and we can show you. Huh?
I share for you.
Yeah, you can share. Yeah, because
okay.
It's some in Spanish.
Okay.
So I should stop.
Yes, you should show the presentation so I can share it for you. So, okay. Here is okay?
Yeah. Yes, this is Guo Senhai, the director, the Deputy of Social and Cultural Studies, Institute for Latin American Studies of the CAS. So his PPT, he's more is experts on the China, Latin Americans. So firstly, China and Latin America is actually a natural partner from the Maritime Silk Road, connect each other. In the Spanish Empire period, actually there is a triangle. The Europeans sent the troops, this capital and the technology. Is some labels from Negroes in Africa, and then send even some Chinese as coolie, right, to build the roads to miners factories, right. When I visited, Panama, they have the memory of the museums and the photos show you. In Peru, in many Latin American countries, they have some stories to show you that coolie is in the forced labor is during that time Chinese connect each other. Next, so that's the shipping rules, and actually also many Syria and France, Latin America now is also Chinese many food from corn and many tomato, many things from Latin America. So the Belt Road Initiative actually is a callback of the historical memory that actually we connect each other, our food structure, our culture. When I talk to the people, friends in Venezuela, they call the Chinese restaurant as Tifan. Tifan is a Chinese 吃饭, eating in Chinese. That means the overseas Chinese there, Chinese restaurants famous. They just use this Chinese pronunciation. Even like the tea, continental countries call the tea as a cha. Maritime countries call the tea as a tea, day. Like French, Espanol is a tea, day. Day. We see similar. So that pronunciation is in Fujian. People call tea as a day. So cha is another Chinese called cha. So it's so continental and the Maritime Silk Road. So in the cha, different pronunciation. So Latin America, firstly, we say this is a natural extension of the Silk Road, but now we say it's a natural partner of Belt Road Initiative. Panama took a pioneer role to build diplomatic relations with the mainland China, and also signed an MOU with China firstly. Now 19 countries signed an MOU among all the 33 countries, right, the Latin Americans. And Argentina and Brazil is an exception, but actually extensive cooperation, but it didn't sign. Okay, next page. So that's very interesting, actually. Latin Americans live in the shadow of the US model, or previously European model. They're not have their own development roles, too much rely on the finance and Washington consensus, IMF. So the reasons Argentina always suffered of the US produced US dollars and the use IMF to regulate you, don't interfere with domestic affairs of you, right? So your politics are too much impacted by. When I visited Panama, the canal companies are also actually in the hands of the Jewish people. They are based in US, so the capital driven. And then who have the capital? US, rich people, rich companies. So your sovereignty suffered a lot because of the capital driven globalization. So now I think China, as I said, is a development oriented, not a capital driven. So people centric. So that's a different approach to let the people and the country have more sovereignty, and then your destiny is in your people's hand, not in other countries' hand. And that's very important. So that's the list of those countries signed an MOU with China. They jointly built the BI. Next page. So policy coordinations first, because we said BI highlights principles of the synergy of the strategies. You have your own dream, you have your own development strategy, and then China should respect. We should have the synergy of the strategy to connect each other. That's different with US. US said, my plan is your plan. You're enforced to accept my plan. Otherwise, you'll be isolated. US also want to decouple or the de-China BRI list. They also have their version. And then they set a precondition, said, Venezuela, Cuba, Bolivia, you cannot in because you are non-democratic, whatever. So always make preconditions, political conditions to separate. Chinese approach is always inclusive. Say everybody welcome, every country welcome. We are not a political ideology driven. We are just economic cooperation, win-win or win. So that different approach. So policy coordination, I think, to respect other countries, not to enforce other countries to adapt to your strategy. Next, please. So that's the policy coordination figure. And then the second pillar of the Belt Road Initiative is about the facilities, build the road, railway, all these things about facilities, energy. So the projects in Latin America, this is to show you so many energy and infrastructure building projects, facilities. As I mentioned, if they connect from Atlantic to the Pacific through Argentina, that definitely totally changed Argentina's actually the position in the globalization, actually, right? Pakistan, always called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor as a game changer because the Belt and Road connect through China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Otherwise, Pakistan always live in the shadow of India. And then, but now the continental and the maritime mutually connected each other. I think this is also a good example for Argentina to do research. Next page, please. But countries should trust each other. That's very important. Pakistan is our very good friend. So trade, the third pillar is about trade. If you build more roads and facilities and easy to do business, right? To save the time and the costs, like I mentioned about China, Europe, the express training growing 50% last year, right? Because of the pandemic. So China, Latin American cooperation, traditionally through the maritime, through the canal. Now, also China also talk about with MOFCOM, maybe negotiate the FTA with MOFCOM, because we also have the China-European Union comprehensive investment treaty negotiation, FTAAP, free trade zone in Asia Pacific. Next page, please. So you build the road facilities, you need money. So the financial cooperation as a swap. China recently also signed again with Argentina, right? So swap. We do business with US dollars. When the US dollars depreciate, both sides suffered. China is the largest foreign reserve, but we need to use these US dollars to invest in a Belt Road Initiative country projects. So financial cooperation is very important, and the digital currency, and also some new kinds of private banks, private capitals also involved. We say traditionally the building operation transfer, the BOT model. Later the environment, we say the EPC model. It's a engineering procurement cooperation model. Now it's a PPP model. So private and public partnerships. So need more private and public banks and all jointly, not just state-owned enterprises, banks like the development bank, import and export banks of China. So I think that's very important message. The risks should be shared by all the private and the public, and like the UK also financing, Saudi Arabia also in the China-Pakistan corridors. So business banks, commercial banks, developing banks, government, all kinds of this jointly to build projects because it costs lots of money. I think that's very important to diverse the risks and the responsibility and also profits. And then also the stock exchange. Now Beijing will have a new stock exchange to finance in the middle and the small size of entrepreneurs, because we focus on the innovation and are more flexible in the financial way. Next, please. It's more diverse of the financial cooperation. Next page, please. So that's the and the last, but the most important pillar is people-to-people exchange. So these about the language learning, Confucius Institute, and also now vocational training, because you need more people to tourists. After the pandemic, actually, Chinese were pulled into Latin America. When people say, oh, in Argentina, actually, the red wine is so excellent, beef, everything. But too far away. We need tourists, we need companies, we need direct flights. When I visited New Zealand, Australia, they want to build the third air transportation line. The first one, actually, China, in Miami, right? Or maybe US and connect Panama and Latin America, right? The traditional one is from maybe Luxembourg, Germany, right? Or maybe Spain or some even Dubai. But we need a more direct air, transportation line, maybe through Australia or New Zealand, Beijing to Canberra or to Wellington, and then to Chile, maybe in Buenos Aires. And that saves lots of time and also cut CO2 emission. In the future, I think that's a third. I think the connected dream. I think, yeah. Yes, and then save it. Next. Now Spanish education. For instance, last year one of my students graduated, and then now hired by the TikTok. So it's make huge money now. It's Spanish, English everybody speak, but the Spanish now is very, if you can speak Spanish in China now, you can make huge money. So people-to-people connections. Actually, in Argentina, if you can speak Chinese, definitely. Also, you can work in the Chinese factories or to build the be the ambassador to connect each other. That's very important. Also, learning Chinese will make you smart because it's very difficult and structure and AI and quantity with the new technology. Yes, because the Latin is just from one direction to another direction. That's only 26 characters, but Chinese is more complex. From the left to right, to the top to down, always. So it's good to for Chinese. If you learn Spanish or Latin, it's also good to you to understand the Western culture, because English is a business language. It's not culturally, So that's these projects about the China studies, right? Chinese studies, not just a traditional sinology. Actually, China studies. Now, even I say theology, the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics, which I served as vice president in the academia in Renmin University. So that's very important. The BRI and the Committee of Shared Future is two pioneer of the Xi Jinping's diplomatic thought, right? So also started the Xi Jinping's thought, not just in general the Chinese culture. In July 1st, President Xi said that the Communist Party will endorse the merge with the traditional Chinese culture. So on the center of the Communist Party about China from the traditional Chinese culture is very important. Next page, please. That's for green. President Xi put it for the ecological civilization. That's very interesting. So digital civilization, ecology civilization. There's Chinese understanding about that. It's not just about way of producing, way of transportation, way of living, but even way of thinking. Coordinate all kinds of areas and so that's the slogan of the make the planet be green and great. So China is very efficient in practicing these ideas. Now, if you visit China again, like Beijing, the air is much cleaner, the environment much better than before, because now we pay high attention to that. Next, please. This is China have the policy paper released in 2016 to mention about sustainable development cooperation and also to jointly to deal with the climate change, right? And some Caribbean island countries suffered of the global warming, and they need to build a new infrastructure, and also how to finance and connect each other. I think that's very important. Like Haiti, you see, suffer a lot from the typhoon, of the tsunami, so how to prepare for the worst scenario in the future, even new virus, maybe WHO Secretary General also Wang. So all this, I think, need we have the future-oriented thinking. Next, please. This is about the Chinese energy projects in the Central America and the Caribbean, like Cuba, all this. Actually, in Brazil and Argentina, so the windy energy corporation and the water, the hydro technology, many things. Now in China, because we practice very efficiently, three gorge projects, and also how to turn this the water and the wind resources into electricity, and have a smart grid to build the 5G or to reduce the costs, make it more convenient, and distribute to connect Latin America's integration. I think energy is very important. Next. So new technology about even low carbon cars and electronic bus. And now it's in Europe also. China is very efficient in building this. I think that's very important. Transportation. Next. That's to compare the Americans. They have the Americans version of the BRI, so-called the American Growth Initiative with the Chinese Belt Road Initiative. The U.S., as I mentioned, we welcome the U.S. invest. We welcome the competition from the U.S. even to make sure the BRI do better, not mistakes. But we not so much welcome the U.S. just to everything against China. And the lip service say, "Oh, I have money." Last week also I had a lecture in Nepal. The U.S. companies, so-called Millennium Finance Corporation, empty service, say U.S. will invest the $500 million to Nepal. Oh, they're very excited. And then some politicians say, no Chinese money now. We use U.S. money is more good. But just a lip service. If you want to take this money, you will be domestic affairs will be impacted. You need to reform. You need to support my policy to contain China. You need to So they suffer a lot for that. Argentina is also a good example. If you need the money from the IMF, you should do something. You should, according to my need, you cannot sign an MOU with China, BRI. All this because of you need to. If you need too much from them, and then they set the preconditions for you. So their money is not easy to use. And also say high standard or to serve for their strategy. So US is always American first and centric in its strategy. So that's not too much respect your sovereignty or your people's need. So that's a big problem. Always serve for their strategy. Capital interest groups. Next, please. So it's a confrontation or cooperation. The Chinese position is very clear. We welcome all the third parties, all countries to jointly always say third party market development. China and Western countries jointly to develop Latin America, Africa. Always welcome that. Actually, France, China, Japan, they cooperate in Africa. China, Japan cooperation in Thailand railway. That's a good example. But we very help China, US can cooperate in Argentina, in Latin America. If you're really concerned about to jointly build the projects and infrastructure, benefit the people, you need to cooperate with China. China is very efficient to transfer US high technology or finance and innovation to let it be the more people-oriented, to benefit people like China, past the 40 years of open reform, to show you about that. So really need to cooperate with the US actually, if the US really want to benefit the local people. Actually, US set the rules, standards, and like AIIB also use US dollars. Actually, we support the US-led globalization, but the problem is the US. The thing about it, they cannot lead again. They need to build a new supply chain, de-channelized, decoupled, so they make the other countries be enforced, take side, and that's make trouble. Next page, please.
Finished.
Finished? Okay.
Yes.
Muchas gracias.
Por nada. Thank you so much, Professor Wang. So really integral and holistic, comprehensive analysis by you with all meanings of Belt and Road Initiative, and also for its connection with the community of shared future for mankind, as also as different theoretical approaches to understand the Chinese cooperation, no? And especially with Latin American characteristics. Thanks also for Professor Guo Zhuanhai, that is a very close friend of us, of course, and its analysis as well, no? So, as Professor Wang said, people-to-people approach is the most important, no? And so the importance of language, of interchange, as today we are having, for example, no? So it was really an honor for us receive this lecture from you, Professor Wang, and I don't know if Professor Bogado Bordaza or Dr. Consani want to add something more before I close this opening session.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor. We are a friend of mine. In the future, we'll participate in many activities. We ask many activities. Maybe the next year we organize in new conference in China study. We are invite you now. No problem. You are in our country or by virtual or online. No problem. Now, no problem. Online or in situ. No. Thank you. Really, I impresses your presentation because it's completely. Yes. Every information for us is more important. I really important for us your information. Thank you again. Thank you again. I hope you take my picture. Okay.
In memory of you.
Of course. I will send you some picture, Professor Wang. Professor Bogado Bordaza,
yes,
do you want to say something more?
Yes, I only, I think it's a really honor for us to have listened to the professor. Your conclusions are very real and shows us a situation that, although I think is quite dramatic, it's very real. So it's also shows us a hope in international cooperation and fundamentally in the paradigm of pueblocentrism, centrist, people to people, to says Francesca. And with Latin America, the professor also shows us a very broad overview of the relation between both, very completely, as says Dr. Consani. So thank you so much. And I hope we contact us in every time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you again, Professor Wang Yiwei, especially because in China now it's quite late, I think, no, already? Yes, so, okay. So thank you so much indeed. I think we can close this opening session for today, and we see in 10 minutes for the presentation of our book on 100 years of Chinese Communist Party that I, with Professor Norbert Molina Menida from Venezuela, has coordinated together with a lot of Latin American scholars who were really compromised to write in it. So, thank you. Bye-bye. See you soon and keep in touch. 再见。非常感谢，汪老师，非常感谢。再见。
Thank you. 再见。